Did you know that during the Great Depression, some recipes became so valuable they were passed down in family wills, right alongside heirloom jewelry and property? At a time when a dozen eggs could cost half a day's wages, American cooks didn't just find ways to survive, they transformed how we think about food forever. Now, with grocery costs sitting 12% higher than ever before, these long-forgotten recipes are making an unexpected return. Families bringing these old techniques back into their kitchens report saving as much as $4,800 a year, more than the cost of a typical monthly mortgage. Over the next 10 minutes, you'll discover 20 clever recipes that shaped American history. From a butter and egg-free cake now going viral on TikTok, to a nutrient-packed soup that once helped families through medical shortages. These aren't just meals. They're powerful ways to cut grocery costs in half. Let's explore how Depression-era wisdom is helping solve today's biggest kitchen challenge. Stone soup. Stone soup isn't just a folktale. It became a real survival recipe during some of America's hardest years. In the depths of the Great Depression, when savings disappeared overnight, families discovered that with a pot of water and a little creativity, they could make a meal out of almost nothing. The stone itself wasn't the point. It was about turning scraps into something nourishing and shared. Starting with plain water and leftover vegetable bits, families slowly built rich, flavorful broths that could stretch to feed entire neighborhoods for just pennies. Onion skins added depth, potato peels thickened the broth, and if a meat bone was available, it brought in much-needed richness. Today, when the average family throws away $1,500 worth of food each year, this humble soup offers a powerful reminder. What you're tossing might still have value. A modern pot costs about $3.50 and serves 8 people. That's under 50 cents per serving. In the Depression era, the entire pot cost only 15 cents. The real secret is patience, giving each ingredient time to release its flavor, turning simple scraps into liquid gold. Some home cooks today report saving up to $125 a month by turning kitchen waste into meals instead of trash. Hot water, cornbread. While stone soup showed how to make a meal from almost nothing, hot water cornbread proved that even the barest pantry could produce something truly satisfying. Born out of Southern ingenuity, this crispy on the outside, tender on the inside bread needed only 3 simple ingredients: cornmeal, boiling water, and a pinch of salt. Families with nothing more than a bag of cornmeal could still fill their stomachs for just 2 cents a serving. Even today, a modern version costs only about 25 cents per piece, far less than store-bought bread, which can run nearly $5 a loaf. The process couldn't be simpler. Pour boiling water over cornmeal to form a quick dough, shape it into small patties, and fry them until golden and crisp. These golden discs were served alongside beans or crumbled into milk for breakfast, offering comfort and nourishment at an unbeatable price. With a $2.99 bag of cornmeal making up to 20 servings, families today could still save around $80 a month just by baking this old classic at home. Best of all, it takes just 10 minutes to make, faster than running to the store. And if you thought that was impressive, imagine using just 1 egg to make a meal big enough to feed 4. That's exactly what our next recipe delivers. And it's still helping families stretch their grocery budgets across Asia today. Egg drop soup. When eggs were a rare treat and meat was hard to come by, Chinese immigrants shared a simple but brilliant recipe that quickly spread across Depression-era America. Egg drop soup. With just 1 egg and a pot of seasoned broth, families could create a meal that felt hearty enough to feed 4. The beauty of this dish lies in its simplicity. Thin streams of beaten egg stirred into hot broth form delicate golden ribbons, making each spoonful feel more substantial than its humble ingredients suggest. Back in the Depression, this nourishing soup cost about 3 cents per bowl. Today, it's still one of the most affordable protein-rich meals, coming in at just 45 cents per serving. The magic happens when the heat of the broth transforms the egg into silky threads, creating a luxurious texture without needing anything fancy. Modern families report saving up to $50 a month by swapping out one meat-based dinner each week for this satisfying soup. Add in whatever vegetables you have on hand, and you've got a complete, filling meal for less than the cost of a cup of coffee. If you think that's impressive, wait until you see how the most common vegetable of the era became the base for a soup so rich and creamy, people still mistake it for a dairy-laden dish. Molasses cookies. When sugar became too expensive for many families, molasses stepped in as a sweetener and a secret nutritional weapon. These cookies weren't just a treat. They delivered important nutrients too. Just 1 cup of molasses packed more iron than 3 servings of spinach, making these cookies essential for families unable to afford fresh produce. With just flour, molasses, baking soda, and warming spices like ginger and cinnamon, home bakers turned simple ingredients into soft, chewy cookies that stayed fresh for weeks. During the Depression, a batch cost just 10 cents and made 24 cookies. Today, the same recipe costs about $2, roughly 8 cents per cookie compared to 35 cents for store-bought options. The process was foolproof. Mix, roll, and bake until just set for that perfect chewy center. Families today report saving up to $60 each month by baking these at home instead of buying packaged cookies. And, thanks to the nutritional value of molasses, these cookies still offer more iron and long-lasting energy than most of today's sugary snacks, making them a smarter, healthier option for lunchboxes and after-school treats. Rice and raisins. Speaking of smart sweets, few Depression-era recipes stretch $1 quite like the simple combination of rice and raisins, a comforting dessert now making a comeback on budget-conscious food blogs. During the toughest days of the Great Depression, this pairing turned 2 of the cheapest pantry staples into a dish that felt every bit as indulgent as fancier puddings. The magic lay in the slow, simmering process. As the rice cooked, it released its natural starches to create a creamy, satisfying texture, while the raisins plumped up, releasing their sweetness and creating a light, natural syrup. Back then, one batch cost just 7 cents and easily fed 6 people. Today, the same recipe costs about $1.80 total, or 30 cents per serving, far more affordable than the $4 to $5 typically charged for packaged rice puddings. This simple dish didn't just satisfy a sweet tooth. It became a versatile breakfast and dessert option that modern families say saves them around $55 a month. Many even report that their children prefer it over expensive packaged cereals, proving that sometimes the simplest meals bring the most comfort and satisfaction. Baked beans. During the Depression, navy beans became kitchen gold, transforming from a humble, inexpensive ingredient into hearty, protein-rich meals that could feed entire families for days. The secret lay in slow cooking the beans with molasses, a splash of mustard, and, if fortune smiled, a scrap of salt pork. In hard times, a pot of baked beans cost just 15 cents and fed 10 people. Today, you can prepare a large batch for about $3.50, yielding 12 generous servings at only 29 cents each. The real magic happens during the slow, 6-hour simmer. The beans soak up every bit of flavor, while their natural starches thicken the sauce into something as rich and satisfying as any $6 side dish at a modern barbecue joint. Families who embrace this tradition today often save around $75 a month by cooking their own beans instead of buying canned versions, while also enjoying triple the protein and fiber. And when even the smallest piece of bacon found its way into a Depression-era kitchen, resourceful cooks knew exactly how to make it feel like a feast. That's how the next recipe came to life. a sandwich that elevated a single slice of bacon into something so indulgent it's now inspiring gourmet food trucks. Bacon and onion sandwich. This humble sandwich captured the spirit of Depression-era ingenuity. Back then, it cost just 5 cents per sandwich. Today, it's still a budget-friendly option at about 75 cents compared to the $4.50 price tag of a standard BLT. The technique was as clever as it was simple. Onions were slow-cooked until golden and caramelized, their natural sugars bringing out a deep, rich flavor. A small amount of crispy bacon bits stretched that flavor even further when layered between slices of toasted bread. Families today report saving up to $60 a month by using this method to make expensive ingredients last longer. Slumgullion, or everything but the kitchen sink stew, born out of desperation and named after old mining camps. Slumgullion was the ultimate one-pot meal. Its brilliance lay in its flexibility. Any ingredient on hand could go in. Meat scraps, wilting vegetables, leftover beans, even stale bread, all found a second life in this hearty stew. During the Depression, a single pot cost about 20 cents and fed up to 12 people. Each layer added more flavor, transforming humble scraps into a satisfying, nourishing meal. Modern families following this approach report saving $85 to $100 a month by turning leftovers and kitchen odds and ends into hearty stews instead of throwing them away. And more importantly, it proved a timeless lesson. When you get creative, nothing needs to go to waste. While Slumgullion turned savory scraps into satisfying meals, Depression-era bakers performed an even greater feat, creating rich, indulgent chocolate cake without eggs, milk, or butter. And today, that remarkable recipe is making a comeback under a new viral name, Depression Cake or Wacky Cake. When eggs soared to 45 cents a dozen and butter became scarce, inventive home bakers found a way to create rich, moist chocolate cake without either. Known as Depression Cake, or, by its playful nicknames, Wacky Cake and Crazy Cake, this recipe relied on a bit of kitchen science to work its magic. Vinegar and baking soda created the perfect rise, while oil replaced the richness normally provided by butter. During the Depression, this entire cake cost just 15 cents to make. Today, it costs about $2.50 total, around 31 cents per slice compared to the $4 to $5 price tag at bakeries. The brilliance of this recipe lies in its simplicity. Mix the dry ingredients, add the wet, stir it all together, and bake. No fancy equipment required. Modern families save up to $70 a month using this cake for celebrations. And as a bonus, it's naturally vegan, making it just as relevant for today's dietary preferences as it was during hard times. Potato soup. When potatoes were often the only vegetable left in the cellar, Depression-era cooks found a way to turn them into liquid comfort. Using just potatoes, water, salt, and patience, they created a creamy, satisfying soup with no cream required. The secret was simple. Slow cook the potatoes until they partially broke down, naturally thickening the broth into a velvety, rich texture that felt far more indulgent than it really was. At the time, a bowl of this hearty soup cost just 5 cents. Even today, with modern prices, you can make a large pot for about $4 total, enough to serve 8 to 10 people at only 40 cents per bowl. This humble recipe proves that with the right technique, even the simplest ingredients can produce something comforting and deeply satisfying. The real magic of Depression-era potato soup came from the potato's natural starch, creating a silky, creamy base that rivals even the $8 soups served in restaurants today. Home cooks who've mastered this simple technique report saving up to $140 a month, especially when they boost the flavor with leftover vegetables or saved cheese rinds. Even better, it reheats beautifully, making it a perfect choice for meal prepping and stretching grocery budgets throughout the week. The next recipe takes inspiration from military kitchens and became one of the most iconic breakfasts of the Depression: creamed chipped beef on toast, known affectionately by soldiers as SOS. This dish made its way from military mess halls into civilian kitchens, where it became a budget-friendly meal that could fill a family's table without breaking the bank. The genius of this recipe was its ability to stretch just a few slices of dried beef into a hearty, satisfying meal. During the Depression, this dish cost just 15 cents to feed 6 people. Today, you can still prepare it for about $3.50 total, roughly 58 cents per serving, compared to the $8 to $10 you'd pay for a similar meal at a restaurant. The technique required a bit of precision. The creamy white sauce had to be just right, thick enough to feel substantial and filling, but thin enough to stretch the milk as far as possible. Made with flour, saved cooking fat and milk, the sauce transformed simple ingredients into comfort food. Thin slices of dried beef added salty flavor, and to stretch the meal even further, families often tossed in diced potatoes or peas, turning what began as a breakfast dish into a satisfying dinner. Modern families who still practice this protein-stretching technique report saving up to $65 a month by replacing expensive store-bought meals with this timeless, comforting classic. Potato and onion pie. When meat was scarce and every meal needed to fill empty stomachs, potatoes and onions came together to create a satisfying, stick-to-your-ribs dish perfect for hardworking families. This savory pie turned humble root vegetables into a filling main course that felt just as hearty as any meat-based meal. The brilliance of this dish came from its simple layering technique. Paper-thin slices of potato and onion were carefully arranged with pinches of salt and pepper between the layers, creating distinct flavors in every bite. During the Depression, a single pie cost only 12 cents and could feed 8 people. Today, the cost is around $3.50 in total, just 45 cents per slice, compared to $6 or $7 for a store-bought meat pie. Patience was key to perfecting this recipe. Slow baking allowed the potatoes to become meltingly tender, while the onions caramelized and created a rich, natural gravy. When available, some families added a splash of milk or a bit of saved bacon drippings between layers, but even without those extras, this dish satisfied deeply. Modern households that bring this recipe back into regular rotation report saving up to $80 a month by serving it as a hearty, weekly, meatless main. Dandelion salad. When grocery shelves emptied and fresh produce became a rare luxury, Depression-era families found a surprising feast growing right in their own backyards. Dandelions, those bright yellow weeds that many people try to eliminate today, were once a life-saving source of fresh, nutritious greens. And this wasn't just about getting by, it was about thriving by embracing what nature freely offered. During the Depression, these greens cost nothing but the time it took to gather them. Today, while a bag of salad greens costs $4 to $5, dandelion greens remain free for anyone willing to forage, offering real savings for families looking to stretch their grocery budgets. The secret was in knowing when and how to harvest them. Families picked young leaves before the flowers bloomed to ensure a tender texture and milder flavor. They learned to spot the jagged, distinctive leaves and gathered them in early spring when their nutritional content was at its peak. Preparation was simple, but important. After a thorough rinse, a quick soak in salt water helped remove any lingering bitterness. While some households served them with a rich hot bacon dressing for special occasions, most kept it simple with a splash of vinegar and a pinch of salt. What's remarkable is the hidden nutritional value in these humble greens. A single cup of dandelion leaves contains more vitamin A than a glass of milk, more vitamin C than tomatoes, and more iron than spinach. Modern nutritionists now praise what Depression-era families learned through necessity. These so-called weeds are more nutritious than many cultivated greens. Homemade butter substitute. In a time when dairy farms failed and real butter became an unaffordable luxury, American kitchens pioneered what we might now recognize as the first homemade dairy-free spread. Using simple, accessible ingredients like lard or beef tallow, combined with salt and a hint of yellow coloring, families created a convincing alternative to butter. Back then, a homemade butter substitute cost just 7 cents per pound, compared to 45 cents for real butter. Today, it can be made for around $2.50 per pound. Still a significant savings over the $6 to $7 per pound price of store-bought butter. The process required care and precision. Fats were gently warmed to allow the salt to dissolve evenly, then cooled at just the right pace to form a spreadable, butter-like texture. If milk was available, a small amount could be added to improve the consistency, and a pinch of turmeric provided a natural yellow hue. This spread worked well in cooking, baking, and as a table spread, though most families agreed it performed best in baked goods, where the other flavors took center stage. Modern homesteaders and dairy-free households have rediscovered this Depression-era recipe, reporting monthly savings of $30 to $40 while avoiding the processed ingredients found in commercial margarine. Eggless pancakes. When eggs became too expensive for everyday breakfasts, costing 45 cents a dozen, resourceful home cooks came up with a recipe that would forever change how America makes pancakes: eggless pancakes. These clever cooks proved that you don't need eggs to enjoy a stack of fluffy golden breakfast cakes. The secret was all in the chemistry. Baking powder combined with a splash of vinegar created the same light and airy rise that eggs typically provided. Back during the Depression, a single batch cost just 8 cents and could feed a family of 6. Today, you can make the same recipe for about $1.20 total, just 20 cents per serving, compared to $1.50 for boxed pancake mixes or a hefty $12 for pancakes at a restaurant. The method couldn't be easier. Mix the dry ingredients first, then slowly stir in the liquids to avoid lumps. The result? Pancakes so light and fluffy, no one even notices the eggs are missing. Modern families report saving up to $70 a month by skipping expensive mixes and restaurant breakfasts and adding their own creative twists with mashed bananas, applesauce, or even pumpkin puree for extra flavor and variety. While some families reinvented breakfast with this simple recipe, others turned to an even older American tradition: bread pudding. In 1930s kitchens, stale bread was never wasted. It was a golden opportunity for dessert. Bread pudding transformed hard, dry loaves into a custard-like treat that could rival even the fanciest pastries. The method was simple. Combine cubed stale bread with a basic custard made from milk, eggs, sugar, and a splash of vanilla. Back then, one pan of bread pudding cost just 18 cents to make. Today, it runs about $3 for a full batch, or roughly 50 cents per serving, compared to the $8 to $10 you'll pay at a restaurant. The genius came from understanding food chemistry. Stale bread absorbed the custard like a sponge, creating a perfect balance between cake and pudding. Some families today even grow their own herbs like mint or lavender to add gourmet touches for free, flavors that would cost extra at a bakery. Modern households report saving up to $65 a month by turning bread that might otherwise be thrown away into delicious desserts. Even what most people considered kitchen waste became treasured ingredients during the Depression. Take potato peels, for example. Fried potato skins. In a time when survival meant using every last scrap, potato peels transformed from trash into a prized snack that's now served in upscale gastropubs for as much as $12 a plate. Cleaned and fried in saved bacon fat or a bit of oil, these crispy skins became as satisfying as any store-bought chip. Families seasoned them with whatever was on hand: salt, pepper, and sometimes dried herbs from the garden. The cost was virtually nothing, since the peels were already part of a meal's original ingredients. Today, while restaurants charge premium prices for loaded potato skins, the classic homemade version still costs mere pennies. Families who embrace this practice often report saving $40 to $60 a month by reducing food waste. Even better, these crispy snacks pack more nutrition than the potato itself, rich in fiber and essential minerals typically discarded. While money was tight during the Depression, finding enough protein was often the bigger challenge. That's where the next ingenious recipe came in, turning a handful of oats into a hearty meat dish that could feed twice as many people. Oatmeal meatloaf. When 1 pound of ground beef had to stretch further than ever before, resourceful cooks found their secret weapon in a pantry staple: oats. This wasn't just another meatloaf. It was financial brilliance on a plate. By combining ground beef with oats, an egg, and simple seasonings, families could double the yield. A single pound of beef could now feed 8 people instead of 4. Back then, this method cut meat costs from 25 cents per serving to just 12 cents. Today, with ground beef averaging $5.99 a pound, this same recipe can still work wonders, bringing the cost down from $1.50 to just 75 cents per serving, while adding fiber and extra nutrition. And it's not just about savings. The oats also create a tender, moist texture that holds together better than traditional breadcrumbs. Budget-conscious families today say this trick helps them save up to $100 a month, not only for meatloaf but for burgers and other ground meat dishes too. And the savings don't stop there. Leftover slices make perfect sandwiches, extending your meals and your grocery budget even further. But what if you couldn't afford any ground beef at all? That's when Depression-era cooks turned to one of the most creative solutions of all: using every part of the pig to create a breakfast classic that's still beloved in Pennsylvania Dutch country today: biscuits and gravy. While cornmeal made for a hearty breakfast, Southern kitchens elevated morning meals even further by transforming simple kitchen scraps into pure comfort with biscuits and gravy. This classic dish turned basic pantry staples into a filling meal that could keep a family going through hours of hard work. It started with the biscuits: just flour, a bit of lard or shortening, and buttermilk if it was on hand. But the real magic happened with the gravy. Using saved meat drippings and flour, home cooks created a rich, creamy sauce that made even the plainest meal feel indulgent. During the Depression, this entire meal cost just 11 cents to feed 6 people. Today, you can still make it at home for about $2.80 total, or just 47 cents per serving. Far more affordable than the $8 to $12 charged at diners. The technique was simple but essential. Start with a roux by cooking flour into the hot drippings, then slowly whisk in liquid until it becomes smooth and creamy. Even the tiniest amount of leftover meat or fat was enough to flavor a whole batch of gravy. Modern families say this classic recipe saves them up to $90 a month by replacing costly breakfast outings and boxed meals with homemade comfort food that's just as good for dinner as it is for breakfast. Mock apple pie. While some families stretch their meat supplies, others turn to a far more surprising solution: using simple crackers to recreate one of America's favorite desserts: apple pie. Known as mock apple pie, or Ritz cracker pie, this recipe became one of the most brilliant culinary illusions of the Great Depression. With apple orchards out of reach and fresh fruit prices skyrocketing, home bakers found a way to recreate the taste and texture of real apple pie without using a single apple. The secret? A clever mix of Ritz crackers, or any similar variety, cream of tartar, lemon juice, and cinnamon. Together, these ingredients mimicked the tart sweet flavor and soft texture of apple pie, filling so convincingly that even seasoned bakers were often fooled. During the Depression, this pie cost just 18 cents to make, compared to 75 cents for a real apple pie. Today, you can prepare it for about $4 in total, around 50 cents per slice, far cheaper than the $7 to $8 you'd pay for a traditional apple pie. The magic lay in the science. The crackers softened perfectly in the sugar syrup, while cream of tartar brought the familiar tartness of apples. The recipe became such a phenomenon that Ritz eventually printed it on their cracker boxes, where it remained for decades. Modern families, curious about this bit of culinary history, not only appreciate the cost savings, but also gain a deeper respect for the creativity and resilience that defined Depression-era kitchens. Scrapple. This classic breakfast dish turned leftover pork scraps, cornmeal, and spices into a hearty, sliceable loaf that fried up crisp on the outside and tender on the inside. During the Great Depression, it cost just 3 cents per serving, using parts of the pig that butchers often gave away. Today, making it at home runs about 60 cents per serving, still far cheaper than the $4.50 price tag of commercial breakfast meats. The magic happens during slow cooking, where the meat scraps break down into a rich, flavorful broth that thickens with cornmeal into a dense, savory loaf. Once chilled, sliced, and fried, it develops a golden crust that even those unfamiliar with the dish find hard to resist. Many modern families report saving up to $90 a month by replacing costly breakfast meats with this traditional favorite. While some households had access to pork scraps, others turned to a pantry staple that could simmer all day and only got better with time. In fact, this next recipe became so beloved it remains a staple at backyard barbecues to this day. Johnny Cakes. Blending Native American wisdom with Depression-era necessity, Johnny Cakes became a breakfast staple that powered workers through the hardest times. Long before the Great Depression, this cornmeal flatbread helped early settlers survive, and by the 1930s it returned as a vital, affordable meal. Unlike costly wheat flour, cornmeal stayed inexpensive and stored well through long, lean months. The technique was beautifully simple. Hot water poured over cornmeal created a quick dough, which was then fried into golden discs with crisp edges and soft, tender centers. Back in the Depression, a batch cost just 6 cents and could feed 8 people. Today, it costs about $1.50 in total, around 19 cents per serving, still far cheaper than the $3 to $4 you'll pay for commercial pancakes. The real brilliance of Johnny Cakes was their versatility. Served sweet with a drizzle of molasses for breakfast, paired with beans for a hearty dinner, or packed cold for lunch, these simple cakes adapted to every meal of the day. Native Americans originally taught settlers that adding a pinch of wood ash, a natural lye, helped unlock the corn's nutrients. Modern cooks recreate that effect with a bit of baking soda. Families today report saving up to $65 a month by bringing this flexible, filling bread back into their weekly meals, proving that some of the oldest recipes are still the smartest. Hoover Stew. When President Herbert Hoover's name became linked to the simple macaroni dish known as Hoover Stew, it wasn't exactly a tribute. Yet, despite its humble origins, Hoover Stew became one of the most practical and filling innovations of the Depression era. Originally created for school lunch programs, this dish combined macaroni, canned corned beef, and stewed tomatoes to provide a complete, nourishing meal that was both economical and satisfying. During the Depression, one pot of Hoover Stew cost just 26 cents and could feed 12 hungry students. Today, the same dish costs around $6 to prepare, or roughly 50 cents per serving. Still far cheaper than the $3 to $4 you'd spend on canned pasta meals. The recipe was all about efficiency. Macaroni was boiled until tender, then mixed with canned corned beef and stewed tomatoes to create a balanced meal rich in both protein and carbohydrates. School cooks quickly learned that adding canned corn or beans stretched the dish even further, boosting both volume and nutrition. The true brilliance of Hoover Stew lay in its adaptability. Any canned meat could substitute for corned beef, and a variety of vegetables could be added depending on what was available. Even today, Food banks and community kitchens rely on variations of this recipe, knowing that one pot can feed a large family for less than the price of a single fast food meal. Budget-conscious families report saving up to $100 a month by making this filling one-pot meal a regular part of their dinner rotation. These 23 recipes offer more than just strategies for getting through hard times. They showcase the very best of American ingenuity and resilience. In 2024, with grocery prices up 12% and the average family spending over $1,200 each month on food, these time-tested techniques could help modern households save as much as $5,000 a year. From turning kitchen scraps into nourishing stone soup to baking rich cakes without eggs or dairy, every recipe proves that creativity in the kitchen can stretch even the most limited resources. Whether it's foraging dandelions for fresh, free salads or stretching a single pound of meat to feed twice as many mouths, these Depression-era methods provide practical solutions for today's economic challenges. Our great-grandparents didn't just survive hard times. They left behind a powerful legacy of resourceful cooking. And in times like these, that wisdom is more valuable than ever. They showed us that remarkable meals don't require expensive ingredients, just a bit of knowledge and creativity. If you found value in these forgotten kitchen secrets, join our growing community of budget-conscious cooks. Subscribe and enable notifications for weekly demonstrations of these money-saving recipes. And don't forget to share your own family's Depression-era recipes in the comments. Together, we can preserve this vital culinary heritage. Because in the end, great meals don't start with wealth, they start with wisdom.